I've got my bold
You're
mug,
bold.
which I'm going to stop drinking out of. Okay, so I was talking with a client this week, and the conversation started by they want to grow their business, but don't know how to stop feeling like they are just running it. So a pretty classic, like he's hired a really good first employee.
Okay, awesome.
And to the point where like this employee is doing like 95% of the on the job work. So he's actually not really on like in the details doing the work anymore. He's a lot more building the business, talking with clients, all that kind of stuff. So good first step.
And he trusts the employee.
Yeah. Not only does he trust the employee, like he's had other people comment on how good the employee is. He's had other institutions wanting to take some of the employees' time to like do events and things. And so you can probably guess where like a problem is coming. He's worried about losing the key employee. So his words were like, if he lost this employee, it would set him back probably 5 years.
Yeah.
Because he's invested so much time and energy into this one person, which is smart. I told him like, that's good. But really like, he's just worried. Like if this person goes, they're so high potential and so good at doing the work that he'll have to jump back onto doing the work, which will then really stop the business from growing.
Okay. So now that this new employee is doing 95% of the work, what has the owner been replacing his time with?
That was actually a lot of what the call was about. Was he's not sure where to put his time most effectively. And what is the next hire he needs? So he's doing a lot of the quoting, he's doing a lot of the project management, he's doing a lot of the customer support and relationship building. He's the one coming on to jobs to check for things and do reviews. So he's doing a lot of like the everything else that's not the work, essentially. Which means like it's a good place to be. You can tell he's good with people, so that's like a good place for him to be. But I think it's a little bit less focused than it needs to be. To really grow the business past just feeling like you're running it and not growing it, it's really a matter of like, where are his true strengths that he's going to get the highest leverage on?
That was going to be my next question. Did you guys go over the roles and responsibilities and where he should be, like his strengths and what makes the most sense for where he should be putting his time?
Yeah, so we started down the path of mapping out like, where are you most talented? What do you want to become better at? And what brings you the most joy? We started that conversation a little bit towards the end of the call, but a lot of it was spent really like focusing on this employee thing, because if he lost that employee, it kind of, there's no point in knowing all the rest of this stuff. So you have to go back to doing the work until he finds a new person. But I gave him the homework of like, start mapping these strengths, areas to learn / grow, and what brings him joy.
And just back on to the employee.
Yeah.
Has he done a like feedback or survey? Like, does he know how happy the employee is, or?
A little bit. So he knows a little bit about where the employee is at and level of happiness. So we talked about having like a good heart to heart. I asked him some questions to see if the employee was like really like the real deal. Sounds like absolutely is. Younger, not that that's like an important factor, but just means plenty of time ahead. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
someone at the end of their career that like, okay, and it's more about how do you get the most from them before you lose access. And it's
Yep.
more about how do you make the most of it going forward so that you have them for all of their future potential, as much as makes sense.
Yep.
So we talked a lot about like have a heart to heart. Like if it's really a key employee, I wouldn't do this for every single employee, but if it's someone who you think if they left is going to set you back 5 years, then sit
Yeah.
down with them and talk to them about, you're valuable. You're important to this business. It should be obvious by now. People are thinking you're doing an amazing job. You have
Mm-hmm.
a ton of potential. I know you're going to do awesome things. What I'd like to do as the owner of this business is have you do those awesome things here. But for me to do that, I need to know like what's important to you. Is it money? Is it recognition? Is it time off? Is it, I don't know. It could be an endless number of things. So instead of me just throwing something at you thinking that I'm giving you something that'll make you want to stay, I just want to know like what would make you want to grow here versus somewhere else. And if it's not possible, if you really are set on doing something that can't be done here, then just let me work with you to figure out what that's going to look like so that I can also make a plan to make the most of your time here and then have a plan for before you're gone.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah. And so I think that was really the big action we came out of from that call was until you had that conversation, it's hard to really make much other plans
Mm-hmm.
because, who else he needs to bring in actually depends on how this conversation goes. Because let's say the conversation goes, really key employee wants to be invested in this business and wants to actually grow in the business too, that might lead to maybe they become a part owner, a co-founder, a partner, whatever they want to terminology they want to use. But if
Mm-hmm.
that's important to them, I told the person I was talking with, like, I would absolutely explore it because if you think you're going to set you back 5 years without them, who cares if you have 90, 80, whatever percent of the success is yours now and you've given some of it away? The pie is going to be so much bigger because you're working together versus not.
Had
And
the owner thought about like considered that or but like previously, or was this kind of a bit of a an alt in their current path and like, oh, okay, 1 second, let me pause and really reflect and think about that.
yeah, I think it was like a new possibility.
Okay.
So I think he was already open to the idea of like, what can I like throw at this person to keep them here?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think this went a little bit deeper of like, can you really have that honest heart to heart to find out what matters most and be open to it being like pretty much anything within reason, right? Because if you
Mm-hmm.
truly believe you're better off with this person than without them,
Yeah.
then you should be willing to give up almost all of the extra you think you're going to get with them than without them.
Yeah.
Because if without them you're going to make, let's say, 100, but with them you're going to make 200, then I would be willing to give them as much of that 200 as I could to make them want to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Because it'll be 200 now, and then 400 the next year, and then 800 the next year, or whatever the case is going to be.
Well, I really like
So,
paused to think like, well, would I want to go back and do 95% of the on the job work? And if I
no.
don't, then would I want to go through the process of hiring 2, 3 people that might be able to do the like work up to do the level that this current employee is doing? So
Yeah. And I think it's a really important perspective of this is, you and I have talked about this a ton of like valuing employees properly versus having someone fill a role. So this
mm-hmm.
person is filling a traditional role that companies like this have that's like well understood by the industry, has its like requirements and its responsibilities and all the things that it does. But you have a really unique talent in this position that is amazing for the business in addition to what the role needs.
Yeah.
In cases like this, I'm such a big believer in like if you know a person's amazing at something and they have such an outsized impact in the business, you should be giving them an outsized reward for their impact. And that doesn't have to mean just dollars, right? I think that's where a lot of businesses go wrong. They think like top employee, promote them to a manager, give them a bunch of money, but then you watch the employee leave in a couple months. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because what mattered to them was they actually liked the individual contributor work they were doing. They don't want to be a manager. And while the money is nice, what they really wanted was an extra 2 weeks of vacation to go do a family trip in the summer. And so
Yep.
they find a company that's going to give them the extra 2 weeks in an IC role where they're making close to the same amount of money or maybe a bit less. And they're much happier. And that sucks as a founder who like thought you were doing something to keep them and you gave them the wrong thing.
I think it comes down to like everyone is different. Everyone has different like personal goals or what drives them and motivates them, and not throwing the same solution to every employee, because yeah, it might not work. It might not drive us like.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's, again, it's not an every employee thing. It's the employees who stand out and make their impact known through whatever means. And it's on the owners and founders and managers to make sure there's good systems inside the business to recognize loud talent and quiet talent. So it's not just the people who are like most showy or announcing the things that they're doing who are getting the raises and the attention. But when you do find someone who's this critical to your success, like step one is figure out what they need.
Yeah.
Because from there, let's say this person, again, really great in the work, doing the work, and they love doing that. Maybe they want to be involved in decisions that impact what that work's going to look like going forward. And that's how you keep them, is just by involving them in who is your next hire. Is it a project manager who can take a lot of that load off the both of you of managing these projects? And it's just someone who's going to like, neither of you need to do this anymore. You can focus on the things you love most. If they have an ability to impact that decision on who it is and what they're going to be responsible for, it's going to become hard. You make them more sticky, because if they get to shape this into the thing that they want, why would they want to leave? Right? Like that's kind of the mentality with these key people. And then you can actually feel secure. You don't need to like, he's going to bed stressed at night of like, what happens if this person leaves? They're so talented. Everyone knows they're so talented. People are asking about their time. Like, if I don't do something, at some point someone's going to come along with an offer interesting enough that they're going to leave. And that puts my business way far behind.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. So I guess, I don't know, for the lesson from all this for everybody else, just to wrap it up nicely, is I think just really ask yourself the hard questions. Do you have people in your business who are really important to succeeding, quiet and loud? So don't just look at the loud people, but everybody who's contributing a really meaningful amount or providing a key piece of the business. And do you feel like you can go to sleep soundly knowing that you've done what you can to keep them? There will be times when someone will just say, this is no longer the thing I want to do. I want to go do something else that this business can't provide me. And there's nothing you can do. You just keep a good relationship. You might end up working together again 5 years from now, and you just make a plan for them leaving. But at least now you know, because you've had this heart to heart. You know what is important to them, and you can plan accordingly in your business. And if it keeps them, then you can go to sleep knowing you've done everything you can to keep them in your business and keep it operating smoothly. And then you can go into all the next bottlenecks. He still has a whole bunch of other stuff that he wants to figure out. But until this is settled, there really isn't a point in doing the rest.
I think there's a lot of nervous conversations that have to be had as a business owner in stressful situations,
Yes.
but being vulnerable enough to have these honest and open heart to hearts is so important.
Yeah. And just admitting, like, no one can know everything. No one can be good at everything. And so just, even as a founder, I think founders often feel like they have to have all the answers or know all the things. And like, again, insanity. How could that possibly be true? So I think just opening the conversation with like, you're important to the business. I don't know what you value most. And so before I just give you something, I want to figure out like what would make you happy staying here for the next 5 years. And then let me see if I can do that for you. And if not, we can have a conversation. At least I know where this is at and we've had it, so that we're not both wondering. You're not wondering if I actually care that much about you, and I'm not wondering if you actually want to stay here. And we're both going to bed stressed out because we just didn't have this conversation. So I guess the real lesson is have hard conversations instead of letting them sit around.
Agree.
Cool.
Cool.
Any other thoughts? I did a lot of talking.
No, you wrapped it up.
Okay.
Perfectly.
Cool. Okay. Well, see you next time.
See you next Tuesday.
Yeah, see you next. That should be the name of the podcast. See you next Tuesday. Get all the Australians laughing at it.
Okay.